In today's episode, we talk about the 2023 Honda Civic Type R.
Price one is $65,434.
$66,000. That's what a 2023 Honda Civic Type R costs at my local Honda dealership.
Calling Classic Honda. Press 2 for sales. Press 3. Can I help you?
I wanted to know if you guys had any of the new 2023 Civic Type R in stock.
No, we don't.
Is anything going to be coming?
We have one Sonic Gray. It's pending. It's only going to take about 3 weeks. The price one is $65,434.
Okay, thank you.
Is it worth that money to you? What do you think about the power numbers? How about the looks? And how about those huge dealer markups that we're seeing in some places, especially here in Florida? I feel like I have to start this video talking about these crazy markups that we're seeing. I just can't seem to think about this car and then not somehow get onto the subject of the money that it costs. And right off the bat, that is a shame because we do have a car now that is manufactured in Japan again. The chassis is manufactured in Japan. The engine drivetrain is all done in the US, in Ohio. Where I'm at here in Florida, I think we have some of the highest dealer markups out there. California and Texas, I'm sure are big as well. $66,000 for a Honda Civic Type R, a Civic. I don't follow too closely the new car prices, but I'm pretty sure that you can get into some pretty good luxury or performance brands for that kind of money. And what's crazy is that this car has a $42,000 MSRP. In today's world, that seems like a pretty good price for a sporty kind of car. And in my opinion, what these markups are doing are knocking out some of the targeted audience that this car is meant for. Now, obviously you're gonna say, but dude, the prices are going up because people are willing to pay them. I do totally agree with that, I do. But in my mind, the people who would be out to buy a Civic Type R are the people who are in their late 20s, early 30s. They just got their really good first well-paying job. They're familiar with Honda because likely their parents have passed them down a Honda and they've been driving it forever. And of course, here comes the new car and they want to buy it. But $66,000, that may be a stretch for a lot of that targeted audience. And so it puts it in kind of the next category. People who are maybe a little farther along in life, a little more established, or they're just super Honda collectors. It just sounds kind of funny to me that maybe a 50-year-old executive somewhere would want to go buy a Civic Type R instead of an Audi this or whatever that. You know, Type Rs have always kind of been that boy racer car, not really a status symbol. And at $66,000, that likely brings the monthly payment up to $700-800 if you're not putting much money down. And frankly, that just may outprice a lot of that targeted audience. So how about the performance of this thing? We've talked about the money, but let's say you're good with the price. What are you getting for that kind of money? Starting under the hood, we got the 2-liter turbo, 315 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. An improvement over the last model, but just. This car does have a higher power to weight ratio, but I think it got a little heavier too. So those power numbers just eked out the power to weight thing. One thing that I do love about the new Civic Type R is that it still retains that 6-speed manual. And likely if you're watching this video, you've heard about Type Rs before and Civic shifting in general and how it's some of the best manual transmissions out there. It comes with rev match control on your downshifts. It also has 4 drive modes and a different exhaust sound for each. Don't know what I think about that. Maybe a little Mickey Mouse there. Suspension-wise, it is still the McPherson struts up front, but it's something called a dual-axis McPherson strut, which tries to minimize the torque steer, and a multi-link rear suspension, which we've seen on all the Hondas for a while now. Something that is really cool on it, it was on the previous generation as well, the active damper system. Active suspension, essentially. That's Formula One stuff there, buddy. Not recent Formula One, though. Stopping power, it's got the Brembo calipers with a 13.8-inch rotor up front, limited slip differential in the transmission, electric power steering, 19-inch wheels this time. Good choice there, a little bit smaller, with a 265 Michelin Pilot. Very nice. More of the racy kind of performance parts, lightweight crank, lightweight flywheel, and also lightened hood and rear hatch. This thing has got improved engine cooling with a 48% larger front grille and aero mods all over. Probably the highlight on this thing, the beautiful rear spoiler. It's got some cool tech stuff inside with a data logger, a lap score, Apple CarPlay, the nav system, the blind spot and rear view camera, and something called the ACE body structure. I don't know. So it definitely sounds like you are getting some good stuff in there. But again, circling back to the money, if you're paying that kind of money and and you're getting that kind of performance out of a Civic, okay, but what other cars are out in the market for around that price? First one up that probably everybody thinks of, the Golf R. That one you can start spending $45,000 for. Now, I've not looked into it myself. I don't know if there's a huge dealer markup on that, but for a base MSRP, if you're just paying $3,000 more than a Civic Type R, definitely in the same category. This one kind of surprised me. The Challenger Hellcat. $55,000 for this thing, and it's like a, what, 800 horsepower monster or something like that? But obviously, you know, that car is an engine with a body built around it. You know, it's probably all plasticky bits that are way cheaper feeling than even a Honda interior. The Audi TTS. Again, we go back to that executive businessman. I kind of feel like he's gonna pick that Audi over a Civic Type R. How about the new Supra? Around $55,000 for those, depending on which one you get, of course. But that's a pretty cool car. BMW M2s, around $60,000. The Corvette. Now, obviously more of the base model kind of stuff, but still a Corvette. A Porsche Cayman. Now that to me is really where I'm like, Cayman, Civic. I'm a Honda guy, don't get me wrong. I am a Honda guy, but I'm also a race car guy. Cayman, pretty cool. And then the Mustang GT350. You know, it's funny, I'm kind of one of those secret Mustang guys, I guess, and I just let that out to the world. I've watched those cars in GT4 racing a lot, and they're hilarious to watch. Just all the power, but all the weight shifting around. It just looks like such a handful to drive that car, but as a wannabe driver, it just seems like such a blast. So, I mean, that's a list. Now, obviously, if someone is willing to dish out $66,000 on a Honda Civic Type R, it's because they really like Honda. Or maybe they're a collector and they're gonna sit on this thing for a while. I don't know, that seems goofy. But so that means that they're not necessarily gonna be swayed to another car just based off of price. Aside from all the cool specs on the car that we listed earlier, I think one of the really cool things about this car is that it's made in Japan again. For me, I got into Hondas when I was in high school. 15 years old, looking through my old magazines of Super Street, and I was just like, I want a Civic hatchback. Now I have two. But that's just when I fell in love. And it was that whole JDM thing. It was the whole like, what is this? Kanjo? Like, all that stuff just seems so cool, so far away, and you know, of course that's part of the allure of it. But I loved Honda's whole philosophy. Lightweight car, small displacement engine that just revs to the stars. It's something that is really all about handling and balance of power and that handling. I love that idea. This new car, does it offer that? Do you think it will get this new generation excited about this car? 15-year-olds right now, well, first of all, are you watching this channel? But 15-year-olds right now, do you think they're like, whoa, over this car? Because it's made in Japan. I've heard about these old 90s ones. I don't know, my grandpa has one or something. But this new car, it's made in Japan. Like, I think that's really cool. The drivetrain is made in the US here in Ohio, but you know, again, I think that's pretty cool too, you know, mixing both worlds. A whole kind of made in USA thing, made in Japan. A true collaboration on this car. The Econo box that came out of the 90s then is just stuff of legend, man. The Civic Type R, even the Spoon Civic EG. Obviously, we're not talking about that for this video, but the Civic Type R, like, I just watched so many videos on the early days of YouTube and all with Civic Type Rs going around these Japanese racetracks that I never heard of. Does this new car excite you in that same way? I am really happy to see that Honda is going to be racing this car. It will be in the TC category in the IMSA series, taking over for the old Civic Type R that's been running in it for years now. I think that's great. I love to see the cars actually getting out there, being used for what they were intended to be used for, not just driving to work. But I've already been seeing some posts from ordinary people out at the club level doing events with this car already, mostly out in California, and all the way up to Pro Series, pro race car teams. They're gonna be playing with this car, and it's gonna be out there competing. I do like the looks of the new car. I think it looks cool. And then I'm on the other hand, like, maybe it's just because it's a new car. It looks a lot more subtle. I think that's cool, but I also thought the other model, the one before this, the one that everyone calls Boy Racer-ish, that one did grow on me a lot. At first I was like, man, that looks really overstyled, but I actually do really like it, especially when you start lowering it, adding all the kind of performance things, cool wheels and all smaller wheels, you know, than what it came stock. I think it looks really good. Maybe that'll be the same story with this one. I do think that You know, it really just reminds me of the base model Civic, and they put a wing on it. And again, part of me is like, well, that's actually really cool, because when I think back to when I really liked the Honda stuff, it was that. It was a base car and people would put an aftermarket wing on it. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. So it kind of harkens back to my old days with that, a whole sentimental thing. And I'm like, I like that. And then on the other hand, I'm like, it just looks like a base model with a wing on. I do think it looks good. I think the front end shot looks really good. It looks aggressive and tough, but a little more subtle than it did before. I think the rear shot looks really nice, again, especially with that wing. The 3-tip exhaust thing, very cool. The price, no. You know, that's a lot of money, man, for a Civic. And for me, kind of my whole philosophy, Travis, the other guy on this channel, will be able to tell you, he hates my philosophy on this, but I'm like, I cannot pay that much money to drive to work every day for just a car for me. My wife and I paid $40,000 for our Honda Pilot, brand new. But I also have 2 little boys, and she needs to cart them around to school. We need to pick up groceries. We're going on vacation. We got luggage for all of us. It's a practical, useful machine that is worth that kind of money in an everyday expense. For me to drive to work, bumper to bumper, with my Honda Civic Type R, all my 315 horsepower, going 40 miles an hour, red light to red light, I just can't justify it for me personally. For you out there wanting to buy it driving to work, like, that's awesome, man. Awesome. It's just, for me personally, I just can't envision it. Now, for a whole race car thing, if I just had, money to just throw around, hell yeah, I'd go get one, and I'd be dropping it on the racetrack tomorrow. I'd be all about that. As far as that other list that I mentioned to you of all those other cars, is there another car in that market that I personally would be like, I'd really want that instead of a Civic Type R? Really, probably the only choice for me that would be like, would be that Cayman. A Porsche Cayman as a track car just seems like, ooh, like that would be good. And even as a daily car, it's more of a cool, that's the status thing and all that. But again, especially as the race car. Civic Type R though, it would be sweet. It would be sweet. I don't know, it's even got me thinking about the older Civic Type R, the old one now, the previous generation. I wonder what prices are gonna do with that and how much that may drop, and that could be a fun car one day. But so what would you do? $66,000 car, maybe in your area, it's coming out at MSRP, $42,000, $43,000. Is that the case in your area? Let me know. Where do you live and what is the price of this car? I'd be really curious to hear from y'all and hear your thoughts on what do you think of the looks? Are you gonna buy the thing? Have you bought the thing? Have you driven it? Let's hear what you all have to say on this one.